myself on undisturbed so those can come through. Actually, I need to stay on D&D because I have too many pop-ups coming through on my computer. Okay, so we should be live. Let me go ahead and double check that here inside of YouTube on undisturbed so those can come through. Yep, just heard my voice. Now I need you guys to tell me if you can hear me over here on YouTube. Let me know my voice is coming through for y'all. Hey, Becca, you're welcome for doing this. Let me know if you can hear me. And Romania, if you could talk so we can see if they can hear you as well.
Okay. I am talking. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Becca, thank you. Thank you, Flickerine. Can you hear both of us or just K Moon? Hey, Hope, Love, and Sunshine. So grateful to have you here. Hi, Ella. Hi, Lisa. Flickerine, I'm excited for you to meet her too. And Becca says you can hear Romania. Great. Thank you, TYG. Happy Saturday. Sound is great for both. Perfect. I love to hear it. Thank you both for confirming. We have a large amount of content that the two of us are going to cover today. I want to thank you guys who have set aside the time to be here to join. And if you are listening to the recording afterwards, I also want to thank you for setting aside the time to join. I think what you're going to hear today will really not only help you, but give you some ahas that are going to be the foundation for breakthrough for you in connection. So if you've got tea, a notebook, if you're in a comfortable place, rock with it. I think that's exactly what you're going to need in order to be here and have this work for you. I'm going to dive in. Um, Rain says, I find it interesting that all the lives you've done lately, this is the one I could actually attend live. Awesome, Rain. Cool. Yeah, I have done a lot of lives lately. In case you missed it, all the links for those are in the member or in the community section of this YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed and you're new here, welcome. Definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell. I intend to be doing more lives this year so that you have the opportunity to connect and join in, talk, get questions answered in real time. Thanks for being here. I am here today with a special guest whom I will introduce more thoroughly in a moment. But first, I want to give you guys a heads up about what we're going to get up to today. We have roughly 75 to 90 minutes together. If you can't stay, recording will be available here on YouTube in case you have to leave. We're going to be talking about 5 counterintuitive blocks to release when it comes to union. Romania, in case you didn't know, has been my spiritual mentor and coach over the last 2 to 2.5 years, I believe. We met, I think it was late 2022. And in our work together, she has completely turned so much of my life around, not just in my connection, but also when it comes to my business, when it comes to my finances, when it comes to my relationships with everyone, family, friends, strangers, even. The stories I could tell you about what I've learned from her and how it has altered my reality and the timeline that I am living on would blow your mind. And we're going to get into some of those stories as we get to the tail end of this workshop when I share my story. We're going to talk about the missing link to release those blocks to union because there is something that this community never talks about, never shares, a word that this community rarely uses and doesn't even fully understand. So, we're going to get into what that missing link is and how you can start to implement and use it today. I'm even going to give you a taste. I'm going to give you the beginning of how to start using that missing link before we leave. So, be sure you stay tuned until the end. And after we talk about our stories and how the two of us arrived at this point, I am going to answer questions. Romania is going to answer questions for you. I can't guarantee that we are going to have the time or the space to answer questions once this live is done in the comment section. So if we happen to pop in and you're listening to the recording and you have a question, feel free to drop it underneath. But before we complete today, I will give you a way that you can get questions answered by us if you want to take what you learned here deeper. Okay. So, without further ado, I want to say I am your host. Many of you know me already. My name is Kay Moon. I'm a Western astrologer and twin flame channel. I have been running this YouTube channel since 2018 and working with twin flames and divine counterparts for several years now in private session, but also in group coaching and classes. Most of you know those as some of the summer classes that I have run for Twin Flames. I'm starting to move Twin Flame work toward receding that in the background. Many of you may have noticed that. I will still continue to channel. There will still be offerings, but they will be for more of an exclusive community going forward. Going forward, I will be focusing more on the astrological components. So, for those of you who have known me for that and been here for that, I want to thank you. You'll still continue to get that, but I'm going to give you some more direct ways to begin to work on your connection with me instead of being having to get everything here from YouTube as this platform is just switching up some of the way it operates. It's certainly time for me to switch up the way I operate, and I want to be able to give that to people who are ready to work more directly on union. I know a lot of people are not focused on union, but for those of you who are, the direction of where I'm heading is going to be a more exclusive container where you can do that. With that said, I'm going to allow my co-host to introduce herself.
Okay. Let me just make sure. Can you hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay.
great.
All righty. So, like Kay said, my name is Romania, and whoa, that introduction already feels really big. It feels really big. So, wow, where do I start? Like, how do you compartmentalize your life in a few minutes? I got introduced to service, to being of service in corporate America. I was just working a job. I was a single mom. I had just come out of a really hard time in my life. I had come out of homelessness and I had two babies. They are considered Irish twins because they are literally 10 months apart. They're not babies anymore, they're teens, so they would not love to hear me call them babies. But I was in corporate and I was struggling and I didn't know what I was doing. And I just had some really great leaders that helped me. And I just caught on really quick and I started doing really good. And it's always been a gift of mine. It is part of what I call my anointing and my mantle to be of service to people. I get it really quickly and I'm able to give it really quickly in regards to being of service. And so I went literally from the bottom to the top. And that was where I stayed. I stayed there and I wanted to stay there. And I had this ideal position in mind. I wanted to be senior manager and I made it to senior manager. And literally the day of my promotion, life started to crumble. My identity, which is a lot of what you'll hear me talk about and teach, was not as expansive as my desire. It just that they were not in agreement. This thing that I had been wanting and believing for and praying about and just really in this deep desire. And when I stepped into it, me in all of my entirety, body, soul, and spirit, did not feel well. I started to feel pain. And so life started to get shaky and wobbly. And I ended up leaving corporate, not in that moment, like life unfolded. I got another position and COVID hit. And in that time, I went into a really deep spiritual journey. And in that time, I grew up in the church. So I understood from a church perspective how God worked. I understood not to sin. I understood the rules and the regulations. I understood the theology. I understood the doctrine. Um, in having two babies, my very religious family was very angry at me and allowed me through tough love to suffer and be homeless. So that was my relationship with God. And when I left corporate, and actually during my time of like even being able to like rebuild my life, I was coming to terms with the God that I was taught is not who God really is. And so when I left corporate and I had went through this journey, and I called it being yielded, I got reintroduced to God. And more importantly, I felt like God got reintroduced to me. And I had this desire. I was hearing people on YouTube talk. There were channels that I was very interested in, and they were not talking the way that I had learned. I understood that I had, in maybe in the new age community, it may be called psychic abilities, maybe intuitive. The church calls it being a prophet, being prophetic, but there were certain things that would come through, certain downloads, certain transmissions, certain in my life and in other people's life. I was able to tell people like this is going to happen or that is going to happen. And it made me spooky to a lot of people. It made me spooky to myself. And I had a spiritual mentor that told me that I was a prophet. And I was like, and I was in the deepest depression ever. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm just a regular girl who's struggling, who had some babies, and I just need you to help me. I just need you to pray for me and get me out of this time of darkness. And yeah, I don't want to be a prophet. But lo and behold, the mantle on my life is to see beyond the realm of the 3D. And I don't run away from that anymore. And so I got on YouTube. I got on YouTube and I just started talking and I just started sharing. And that was how Kay found me. And that was where I was. And the thing about me and who I am is I believe in elevation and I believe in expansiveness. And where I started, which was to some degree a prophetic ministry, is not where I am. I have come to realize that so much of life or so like here is the thing, right? We are living life regardless to what labels you put on it. We are living life. And in my journey of wanting to be of service to people, there is my heart's desire and a mandate I know from God to teach people that life goes well for them, and that includes love. Because in my talking, I just kind of fell into this niche of being able to talk to people about love and union and even myself. And I will be very transparent with you all. I wanted love. And I found myself, I wouldn't consider myself the runaway bride, but I have run away from a few engagements. So I know I'm qualified to get you there. And I had to do an up level in my identity. And it ended up that in me running away from those engagements, I found my person. And I remember at this time, me and Kay were already like, I was the person, like I was her. I don't like to call myself her spiritual mentor, but let's just go there. Um, and I remember knowing she does this work, and I was like, hey, I think I got a twin flame. I don't know. I'm dreaming about this person. I don't know him. He's on social media. And stuff started to expand. And I found myself on this journey and using language and verbiage that a year ago was completely foreign to me. And even in that, I've seen some really miraculous things. There's no rhyme or reason other than my desire and my faith and my identity that have me in his life and him in my life. And yeah, I want to share that. I want to teach that. And so much of that will come out in the next 10 weeks. But I think that's pretty much it. I probably went way above introducing myself, but I'm a talker. That I think I'm safe to say I think that's the Taurus in me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your story and how we met and what it is you bring to people here and what they can count on you for. We're going to go ahead and dive in to what we're getting up to here today. 2025, as many of you already know, is going to be a turning point for people who have divine counterparts. I've shared a lot of what this turning point energy is coming from, where it is coming from for us collectively with partners like Ali's Tarot, Made for Love, Dark Skin Tarot, who's here in the chat. I've spoken with them all in the last 10 days, sharing some of the critical astrological information about 2025. As some of you who've already watched those lives already know, this year we have a Juno retrograde. Juno is the energy I read as the divine feminine. She's the higher octave of Venus, whereas Venus is the connection, the chemistry, the ooey gooey yummy feelings. Juno is what turns that into commitment. She's what turns that into marriage. She is known as the spouse of Jupiter, but she's the divine feminine energy, and we all have access to that energy collectively. When she goes retrograde, she brings similar but deeper experiences as a Venus retrograde. So she'll be retrograde March 19th through July 10th. Venus will go retrograde this year as well. It's rare that they are retrograde in the same year, even rarer that they're retrograde at the same time. So this is big. She will be retrograde March 2nd through April 13th of this year. What's interesting about this and what you really need to understand about this, I went into great detail on in my collaborations with Made for Love, Ali's Tarot, Dark Skin Tarot. I went into great detail about what this means. So if you want to hear more about that, check that out. But this, what's interesting about this for twin flames, divine counterparts, soulmates in particular, is that 2025 is a year that stands at the midpoint between the last peak of a union window, which was January 23rd of 2023, and the next peak of a union window, which will be right around November 11th, 11/11, 2028. The exact date for that halfway point will be July 11th, 2025. Now, July 11th, 2025 is one day after Juno completes her retrograde. And what makes this even deeper, if you want to add some layers here, she's going to be retrograding through the sign that represents alchemy, endings, death and rebirth, personal power. That's Scorpio, only to land in the sign that represents faith, optimism, hope, and decisions. That's Sagittarius. This year, because of that, it marks a turning point. Now, Venus will retrograde between Aries and Pisces. Aries specifically deals with the self and taking action, and Pisces deals with our connection to all that is, our imagination, our creative imagination at that. As some of you have known, you've seen me draw a little picture like this on some of the lunar updates. When we're walking along a timeline, we get to places where there's a fork in the road, and we can go left or we can go right. The experience is available if we go left, continue based on the decision that we made back here. The experience is available when we go right, give us access to things over here. Now, it's not that you can't go from here to here if you want, you can. But it is much easier if you make the right decision for yourself at the right time. And the conversation we're going to have today is going to help you do that, because 2025 is going to be a year of deciding. The decisions that we make this year, in particular in divine connections, are going to set up the foundation for what we'll experience down the road in the connection. Now, I can already feel some of you are panicking. Well, what if they don't decide on me? What if they don't pick me? What if they don't get it together? Well, what if I blow it? What if I don't even know what I want? Take a breath. What happens to you in your future in love will be based on your decisions, even how other people treat you and what happens in your relationships. All of it is created through decisions we make about our identity. As Romania said, the totality of our world is a reflection of our identity. Now, I know some of you really need to write that down. The totality of your world, everything you're experiencing, it's a reflection, an emanation of your own identity. Now, you already know that I'm an astrologer who advocates for you to pick up your power and work with the divine within you to create the life and the love that you want, rather than waiting on the stars to take control and dictate it for you. If you've been with me for any length of time, you already know I tell you how to use the transits instead of letting the energy happen to you. So, when it comes to divine connections, this year is going to give us the choice to explore where we've not used our power or abdicated our power through Juno's journey through Scorpio, because Scorpio is specifically about power and she's about the connection. And we all have access to Juno's energy. We all have divine feminine energy within us. So, to summarize, to have the experiences of union that we want in 2025 and beyond, it's going to require a decision to own our power. That's the Scorpio piece, and operate in faith. That's the Sagittarius piece. As Romania and I closed out 2024, in conversation together, we noticed that there are 5 core ways that people choose not to do either. Choose not to operate in their own power, choose to be in something antithetical to faith. Today, we're going to give you a way to understand these and we're going to talk through them. And then we're also going to talk to you about what you can do instead so that you can begin to cultivate union in your connection. Now, there are more than these 5 things. These are just the 5 that we figured were the most important that really block and stop people. And she's seen a lot of this. Some of you guys know this about her already. Some of you guys are just getting introduced to her. She doesn't like to brag about this, but I will brag on it for her. She's a specialist at helping people cultivate marriage. The first year I met her, she had walked no less than 5 couples in difficult situations into marriage. And I think the second year, another 3 got engaged or got married. 1 additional couple got engaged. So I think that's like total of like 9 marriages at this point. And these were people who were in difficult, tricky, challenging situations. This woman has receipts. And so when I started to work with her on the totality of my life, and she would say, "This is how faith works. Here's an example of what happened with this couple over here, what happened over there." I said to myself, "You guys, I have to bring her. I have to bring her onto the channel. I have to impart what she's sharing with me to all of you guys." And that's why she's here with us today. So let's get into the meat of today's conversation before we wrap up. And before we get to number 5, I'm going to give you a way to get the other ways people block union so that though you don't fall into those traps accidentally going forward. So be sure to listen to the end and be prepared to ask questions so that we can help you before we're done. The meat of today's conversation starts here. Let's talk about the first way that people counterintuitively block their own union. Let's see here. The first one that I have seen people do, and we've talked about this, Romania and I, is that we see people get into this idea that in order to not repeat a cycle the best thing I can do is walk away. Many of you listening have already tried walking away. Many of you listening have attempted already to figure out, like, okay, I keep repeating this cycle with this person. If I'm going to stop repeating the cycle, the best thing I can do is remove myself from the person, right? Actually, no, it doesn't work that way because we're a part of the cycle. Romania, can you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. One of the things I think when it comes to walking away, we walk away ultimately because we have agreed with defeat. And in my work and in seeing this, defeat does not trump desire. It won't. And so we walk away because we feel like this isn't working, and we're very responsive to what's going on out there. And the walking away most of the time is not what we're doing in a response to what we want. It's reactive to what we're seeing. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk away. This is too painful, and but the desire is still there. And so that is what I mean when I say that the defeat does not trump the desire. And so this is why walking away is not good, because you are literally we are multidimensional beings, so you walking away isn't even something that you're doing based on a decision. You have not really decided to walk away. It feels like a last resort. It feels like what you have to do. It feels like the only thing that will give you any sense of maybe even resolve and peace, and it doesn't even do that. So walking away ultimately, because it is not in agreement with your desire, is ineffective in resolving anything. It something that I teach all the time, and it is something that I had to grow into understanding, is how much out here is always going to be in a direct agreement with who you are. So if you are not seeing out here what it is that you want, then the work is internal. The work is inside. And walking away in that regard is absolutely not necessary.
Thank you. Love that perspective. I'll add to that. Many of you have also walked away only to walk right into the same situation with a different person, the same problems in a different, with a different visual in front of you. So, within that, what's necessary in order to overcome this, as Romania had talked about, is there needs to be, and this is how you change the cycle, bef either before you walk away or if you've walked away, doesn't matter. Wherever you are on that spectrum, there has to be a willingness to walk into the truth of your identity as it stands when your desire is fulfilled. And this is something that isn't necessarily talked about. Certainly in the New Age community and the manifestation world, we talk about living in the end. We talk about the idea of um, living in the state of your desired fulfilled, the wish fulfilled, living in the state of the wish fulfilled. But that doesn't necessarily, we're not necessarily given specific instructions on what that looks like, how that feels, how to work with the challenges we run into when there's discrepancy between how the end feels and what our eyes and ears are seeing. And this is why when we walk away, we end up stalling and getting stuck. So, what we're going to do and what you can do is what Romania was saying to change this cycle. It is imperative that you begin the work of starting to shift the identity that you're holding that is causing the external world to reflect back your internal world. Now, if any of you have done any sort of manifestation work, whether it's manifesting a job, manifesting a house, manifesting a car, you certainly already understand the nature of that, what that means, how to shift your identity. But there's ways to go even deeper in that. But for now, I want to stop here. Let's get into number two. The second way we counterintuitively block our own union is linked to this. And it's something that is talked about a lot inside of the divine connection community. And it's this idea of detaching. Uh, Many of you have been told, many of you have read on the internet that in order to call your union in, you have to detach completely from it. And so you've been working on that. You've been working on it diligently. How do I detach from wanting this? I have to let go of wanting this. I have to let go of the person. It's almost a derivative of that old adage, well, if you love something, let it go. And then if it comes back to you, then it was really yours. I think you might have some things to say about that, Romania. Do you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even in my outside of me sharing here, I actually have a group of women. I have a wives group. So I teach this all day, every day. I teach union, I teach marriage, I teach it all day long. And the idea of being detached and let it go means that you can't be obsessive about it. You can't want it too much. You can't desire it too much. And the interesting thing is, and I've said to you all, my roots are from the foundation of being a believer. So first and foremost, and we'll get through this. Like the Bible is my foundation, and it actually goes against the principles of the Bible, which talk about perseverance, which talk about actually not letting go. I have gotten things, and I have been obsessive. I have been. There is a phrase that I learned very early on, and it was called walking the floor. And so I would get this desire, I would get this thing I want, and you don't have to walk the floor, but I would literally desperately, insistently just go crazy, affirming and decreeing. And so I don't believe that you have to let go. I think that, and this is going to be what we're going to talk about throughout this workshop. When somebody has something that works for them, that narrative is then projected that this is the only way that it will work. And detaching is like walking away. It is something that we feel like we have to do. We don't want to do it. We don't want to do this thing. So we still desire the thing. We just feel defeated. We feel like we have to give up. We feel like I want it too much. It is a beautiful thing to want it as much as you want. It is a beautiful thing to love somebody and not have anything in the natural that's giving you any indication that this thing is yours. It is absolutely the essence of how we love. That is your spirit. That is how you love. You don't love with any evidence. This is why, and I'm going to try not to get too Bible in here, but this is why in the beginning, God said to mankind that it was not good for mankind to be alone. God understood that there was a distinction between how he could be with man in spirit form and man in flesh and blood. We are relational people. We are supposed to love. We are supposed to be together. We are supposed to not be able to get enough. So when somebody tells you, oh, you have to detach, you have to let go, they are projecting to you, you have to get that thing that you don't want too much. Why would I want to be in union with anybody that I don't want to be around too much? So I absolutely believe that walking away and detaching is in the same family. I believe that this puts you in a place of feeling like you have to do it. And if you are ever, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot the next few weeks, if you are doing anything that you don't want to do, that level of intention is being broadcast from you. We are electromagnetic. That thing of, I am doing something that I am not bought into. I am not in agreement with this thing. Because if you were, you wouldn't have to detach. You wouldn't have to let go. You would just walk away. It would just be a thing where it was instinctive. You wouldn't have to decide about it. It would just be such a natural thing to do. So I believe the more you want it, the more you'll get it. It's what I teach. It's what I believe. It's what I've seen. I believe that I think there's a healthy way to be desperate about it. I don't want anybody to be desperate and be on the verge of collapse. But I don't think that's about that thing. I think that's about you. And that is we'll talk about that too. You got to help me, Kate,
Perfect.
'cause I'll keep
You
going.
You know, I love to let you keep going because like gems come out of your mouth every single time you open it. So, but I will add to that and say that I don't know if desperate is the word, but you can be obsessed about a thing and actually have that obsession serve you as opposed to hindering you or shutting you down. I just checked the comments there in YouTube. And I saw that some of you even have noticed you tried walking away and you tried detaching, and it brought on some of the worst pain you've ever experienced in your life. I will concur. Me too. When I cut the cords in my connection, and I am an excellent cord cutter. I am extremely good at it to the degree where once I have done it, the other person feels it to such an intense degree that if they aren't done, I've had these people show up at my house. So when I cut the cords in my twin flame connection, the experience I had on the other side of that was being suicidal. And that is how I learned the hard way. There are certain cords that are just not meant to be cut, and cord cutting isn't meant to be taken lightly. The construct of detaching is the antithesis to what we see people like Olympians use when they are at work on winning the Olympics. We don't see them saying, yeah, I'm just not thinking about it. I'm just not focusing on it. I'm just putting it to the side. When the reality is that when you are working at that level in the world to create something that you want to experience, the last thing you're doing is ignoring it and pretending it doesn't exist. These are people, and I've spoken to you all about this. Those of you who are OGs on this channel, you know I've talked to you about being a divine counterpart and activated by love, being the equivalent of being in the spiritual Olympics. It's something I said a lot back in 2018. Many of you all who are here, you understand this to be the truth for you. But I bring that to your attention because anytime an Olympian says that they won, they said that they worked at it every day, that they were intentional every day. They were intense about it, is what their family and friends will say about them. What we end up using detachment for is a way to repress emotions that are signaling a dysregulated nervous system. So instead of detaching, what has to happen is to begin to understand how to work with a dysregulated nervous system, how to expand your capacity to have the thing that you want, build up the spiritual muscles for creating it. And I think you and I talked about it, Romania. The other thing people want to do is familiarize themselves with the desire to normalize it. We don't get in anxiety, we don't get in dysregulation with a thing that feels comfortable to us. We
Right.
don't feel dysregulated about a bed that we've had for years. We might feel anxious about it getting delivered, but once we've got it, it's ours. We're not dysregulated about it. We're not dysregulated about things that we have. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. Because I talked about in my introduction how when I got the thing that I wanted, I didn't realize it at the time, but my nervous system went haywire. This thing that I wanted, this thing that I did desire, this thing that took forever, this thing, when it happened, this new thing, we are not, as human beings, created for new. Our brain and all of its function is a safety organ. That is what our brain is. Our brain is not a desire organ. Our brain just wants us to be safe. And so that thing, and this is why this work is so important, because that thing that you want, your brain doesn't care that you want it. It just feels, it's regulating, it's paying attention to the beliefs and the thoughts that you have about it. And if it doesn't feel safe, this new thing, this expansive thing, this elevated thing, if it doesn't feel safe, then it's like, no, you don't want this. And all of the thoughts and all of the feelings and all of the reasoning and logic to not pursue that, to not go after it, aka walk away, aka detach, they feel very familiar. So everything about this work, everything that we're getting ready to talk about It's going to challenge you, but it's because it's going to change you. And so, absolutely, it is the most natural thing in the world to feel what you are feeling, to feel like it's too much, to feel nervous, to feel scared. What we're going to also do in this workshop is to teach you how to regulate your nervous system. We're going to teach you how to be present with yourself. We're going to teach you how to say, this feels very scary and very big, and it feels like too much. And I don't know if I can do it. And I don't know how familiar I am with the language of the Bible. And I don't know if I really want to go down here, but I really want this thing. I really want this thing with this person. I've done all the other things. I saw a comment, somebody said, I did the energy work, I did the quantum work, I did everything, and I'm still not in what is the desire of my heart. So invest in you, invest in this moment, and go for it. Like, go for it. If you are not seeking union, if you don't want union, then why are you here? Because that is everything that I want to teach you. Like I said,
Amazing.
I have been there. What makes me qualified? Because people are going to say, have you had union? I've had it. I've had it. I've been there, and I was so dysregulated. I did not know how to get the thing I wanted. I became a pro at getting it, and then I would get scared and run away. And let me tell you, that is very biblical. I'm going to tell you this quick story. In the Bible, there are a group of people, and they are referred to as the children of Israel. And these people have been oppressed for years. They have been treated badly, and they are just people that are used to life sucks. Life just sucks for no reason. It just sucks. And they cry out to God for a better life. And God sends a prophet by the name of Moses. If you got a little church in you, you can feel me, to rescue them. And they go into this beautiful, expansive place. And like everything else, there are things they have to overcome. There are people there, there are giants there. And they go into this expansive place. And in the Bible, historically, it is called the land of Canaan. And they see all the beauty, they see all the wonder, they see all the goodness, right? Like Kay, I've had men, my kid's dad, I wanted him, right? And I called him to me. And when he said, hey, let's go get married, I was like, have you really changed though? Are you really 100%? So I got there every time, and then I retreated because I was not me in my totality, body, soul, and spirit, in agreement with this really big thing. I was not in agreement with this. I didn't know how to have new. And I know that seems like the most oxymoronic thing, but do I know how to have new? Challenge yourself with this, even in listening to me, even in the verbiage that I'm using, even in me talking about the Bible. Can I sit with new? Can I sit with that thing that jolts me? Can I sit with that thing that maybe I have church hurt? It doesn't feel good. Can I sit with this new thing? Where in your life, other than this union, are you seeing new? Where in your is how familiar is life? How normal is life?
Love
Where
that.
are you seeing new? That is the thing that starts to expand you.
I love that. And I love that you brought this up at detaching specifically, because there are so many ways when we walk into something new, it's so far outside of our comfort zone that we end up saying to ourselves in various formats, I can't have it. And we'll talk about those formats in a moment. I'm going to bring those to your attention because there's so many ways that we validate new being not for us. And I'm ready to see you guys break through that. And that's why we're here today. So let's, again, we use detaching as a recap, as a summary. When we get dysregulated in our nervous system about the bigness and the newness of a vision that we have for ourselves in our life, the desires of our heart. When that dysregulation happens, the answer is not to detach. The answer is to begin the process of regulating your nervous system and becoming familiar with the desires of your heart, normalizing being treated well, normalizing being chosen, normalizing being centered upon, focused on, committed to, normalizing the day in and the day out, familiarizing yourself with the day in and the day out of the magnitude of a love of this capacity and this enormity. That's the answer instead of detaching. Okay. So that's what we have for the detaching block to union. We're going to get into the next one here. This is a big one. And I know some of you are going to feel
Kay's big one.
real confronted, real confronted. Yeah, you could call it my big one, but it's only because as an astrologer, people come to me with this sitting as a huge blockage in their path day in and day out. Kay, when will the stars align for the divine timing of my union? And I have talked to you guys about this a lot in courses and workshops, in the lunar updates. The stars can only do so much. They can set the stage, they can call the DJ, they can book the rental hall, they can get the caterer to bring the food, but only you can show up to your party. And so when the stars do align, and they are doing the most to push us toward union, to bring love and connection into our world, to show us that we're already at the resonant frequency to have this type of love, we feel that internal push, that internal pressure, in particular during what I call union windows when Juno and Jupiter are astrologically aligned. I've spoken to you guys about this. When that push is there, I see people do all manner of crazy. They freak out, they walk away, they shut down, they blame, they poke, they prod, they push, they pull their person. They it's almost like something kind of goes a little haywire in the brain because the intensity of the pull gets very loud. And most people are waiting for the intensity of the pull for someone else to do something. Okay, the union window's here, they're going to call me. Okay, the union window's here, they're going to show up at my door. Okay, the union window's here, they're going to leave someone else to be with me. Okay, the union window's here, X, Y, and Z. And then they want to get mad at me. Okay, why didn't it happen? It was the union window. What happened? Let me help you understand this part. And this is really, really critical. This concept called divine timing is based on divinity. It's based on a godliness, a godness, a piece of God that's already inside of you. Now, whether you take it from the biblical, created in God's image, or whether you take it from the new age, we are all stardust. It doesn't matter. The fact is that the same power at work in the stars, at work in the divine, is also at work in you. So leaving it up to divine timing, waiting on the divine, divorces you from your own power and abdicates your power to something external to you when that very thing is already at work in you. You want to speak on that, Romania? Go ahead.
Yes. So even in the church, even in Christianity, it's not called divine timing, it's God's timing. And when I was, like I said, in the seasons where I needed a miracle, I needed the thing. It wasn't necessarily love or marriage or union, but it was a thing. I needed housing for me and my babies. I needed to be out of depression. I needed to get out of the grips of suicide. So I was not surrendering to divine timing. The very definition of surrender means to give up. Surrender is not an amicable thing. That is not. Surrender means when you are surrendering to that divine timing, the very agreement means that you are giving in to an enemy. You are giving in to hostility. So you are considering timing to be against you. If you look up the definition of time, it is the measurement of movement. There is no surrendering to divine timing in its very definition is the most oxymoronic statement anybody could say. So when I needed what I needed, I was not sitting passively, patiently. No, like I had been depressed my entire life and it didn't become a problem. And this is until I had babies. Now I want to be here. I want to, but I could not get that heaviness off of me. When I needed stuff, I needed it. And this is when for me, all of what I know is again me and God one on one. No preacher, nobody, just me in a homeless shelter with the Bible, reading and getting these really massive downloads. And then I found my spiritual mother, but that's what it was. And I would sit with stuff, and this is how I learned faith. This is how I learned to get things to work for me. This is when I learned the outside has to conform. And I know this is mind blowing when you are used to thinking, I've tried and I've done it. But listen, this is this work. This work is moving out of that paradigm. This work is moving out of that programming, and it's possible, but it is work. It is continuous work. And so for me, surrendering to divine timing means I just have to sit here in pain, patiently waiting and patiently hoping to whatever happens. And it made me resentful at God. It made me angry at life because I wanted out. I wanted out. And so I do not in any way, shape, form, or fashion agree with the surrender to divine timing. I don't, I triggered people so bad on my YouTube when I talked about the fact that God's timing is not a thing. Oh my God, there were all these scriptures taken out of context. Listen, in the beginning, there is a scripture in the book of Hebrews that says, as long as the earth remains, there will be seed time and harvest. In that passage of scripture, there is understanding that time in and of itself is a construct of the earth. Like I've said to you, and like I will teach you, you are a multidimensional being. And if you stick it out with me, I will teach you how to transcend time and not surrender to time. Time is not your enemy.
Ooh, 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 I just got some truth chills. Thank you for that. I
I'm
love
getting
that.
drunk over here.
Which I love. This is why I have you here because I know you can go there. And I'm checking the chat too as we go, and you're really speaking to a lot of people. This is very liberating. It's
Good.
confronting,
Because I
but
don't want
it's
to be in the
freeing.
chat, but I don't want to lose people. I don't want to
No,
lose people. Okay.
you're not. Just continue to ignore it. I got you. I got the chat. So does Kylie, my moderator. Shout out to the best moderator on YouTube. Thank you, Kylie, for being here. But I will say that there's so much to be said about time and timing that I can't get into everything here. But this is a taste. This is the beginning of an opening. If the door cracked just a little bit, then you're in the right place. That there is a way to transcend time instead of surrendering to time. And the way you do that is, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but there is this energy here that's already at work in you, the divine. God's already in you. So playing this game that there's some external force that somehow, some way is going to make it happen for you without any of your participation at all, that is a lie. That's the lie. That's the big lie. And I think somebody had said that in the chat, waking up from the big lie that somehow, some way, you are not walking as divinity incarnate. And these five things that we're talking about here, walking away, detaching, surrendering to divine timing, this is the work of having anything, whether you've got a career goal in mind, something or someone you know you can be, but you feel locked out of that reality, whether you've got a housing goal in mind, as Romania mentioned, she was struggling with homelessness because her family turned their back on her, trying to teach her a tough love lesson. You got a home in mind that you need for your security, a health goal in mind. These things that we are talking about are the very things that are going to get you anything, union with anything. Let's talk about number four. The fourth way that we end up blocking ourselves from union. This idea that I have done all my work and it's all up to them. If they want me, they know where to find me. but I don't have, I'm done. I've done it all. There's nothing else I can do. It's all up to them. And as Romania has said here, the truth is that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. What ultimately this equates to is because because of that, the way that specific nature of the way reality works, what's inside is what's outside. In the new age world and manifestation world, we call this as above, so below. There's a biblical correlate. Romania is going to speak to that in a moment. But this ultimately equates to, if we say, I've done everything, it's all up to them. What this equates to is blaming the other person for living out the story and identity that we are unconsciously locked into about ourselves, about love, and about marriage. You want to speak on that, Romania?
I do want to speak on that. This part of life was hard for me, and it's hard for all of us because our programming has us living life where, of course, I can't. People are not robots, and I can't rule anybody, and I can't make anybody love me, and I can't make anybody do what it is that I need them to do. And that is first and foremost living a life where you are not the person that is governing your reality. And that is why instinctively, when we think of anything, we don't even think of ourselves. We think of other people. And again, it goes against the very foundation of the Bible and who we are as creations. So I'm going to use this example of how we are supposed to be, of what it is like to be the creation of God and made in the image and likeness of God. When there is in the beginning, in the story, right? Whether I don't know if I'm introducing you to this or there are some of you that know this, but let me tell you what happened. In the beginning, there was Adam, right? And so here is Adam and Eve, and they ate from the tree, and their eyes were open and they were naked. But in that moment in time, there is a very important question that God puts in front of Adam. And it is the question that will serve all of us every day of our lives. When Adam's eyes were open, he now had knowledge of good and evil. We have the ability in our humanity. It does not matter gender, race, creed, religion. This is our humanity. We are all human beings here. Adam could now make a decision and decide what was good and what was evil. And so the Bible says Adam saw that he was naked and he was ashamed. And so when he's hiding from God, when God says to him, what's going on here, bro? Adam says, he didn't really say, bro, this is me. When Adam says, oh, I'm hiding from you, I'm naked. God says to Adam, who told you that you were naked? Who told you? Who told you about you? Who told you about you? And this is how we live life. We live life from this external perspective of nothing ever starts from us. Everything is always external. So even as people are listening to me, they're thinking, okay, but him, but her, but it, but him, but her, but the story. You don't understand. There's a third party. It's been so long. You're living external. You are living all this thing of you think you're doing work, but how are you doing work from this external perspective? How are you doing work when you're saying everything that I'm saying, everything that Kay is saying, this truth continues to ping off of you because there's this story that's bigger than anything else. And part of that story for us is I'm doing everything. You're doing everything but controlling your narrative. You're doing everything but governing your truth. You're doing everything but deciding. So you're not doing everything. You're doing everything because you have given someone else, a who, like Adam, authority over your reality, and you will continue to live that. It will always, always be, okay, but I've tried everything, but him, but he said this, he said that. I'm gonna give you another example. And then I'm going to let Kay talk. Because we would all think, I was raised to believe that God's voice is sovereign. And if God says it, that's just it. And you just have to deal with it. And there is a king in the Bible, and he's a good king, and his name is Hezekiah. And God sends a word to Hezekiah through the prophet to tell Hezekiah to prepare for death. He tells Hezekiah, you've had a good run, the show is over, and I want you to prepare to leave. You're getting ready to die. The Bible says that Hezekiah turned to the wall. He turned his back to what was obvious. He turned his back to what came from the heavens, and he had a direct conversation. And he said, I don't want this. I don't want to die. I don't care what I just heard. I don't care what's going on out here. And do you understand that Hezekiah changed the trajectory of his life, and the a sounding yes came from heaven, and Hezekiah got more time. In our creation, we decide. Nothing out here was meant to have more authority, not nothing. And I know that is going to be challenging and mind blowing, but if you stick it out with me, I promise I can get that from your head to your heart. You're going to hear me say that a lot because that's my thing. Right now you're hearing it and it's locating you, right? Like you're trying to reason with it. It's a lot of logic. I don't know. It's still this Bible talk. But if you stick it out with me, I can get it from your head to your heart. But listen, you're not waiting on them. You are deciding. Why can't in this reality okay, I don't want to get too deep in the union. So let's the work. But yeah.
You got it. You got it. That's exactly right. Thank you. That's perfect. But this is ultimately what we do, and we have no idea that we're doing it. We get some sort of glimpses into it if we've done any sort of attachment work or therapy. We get some sort of idea about that we're reliving the same story over and over and over again. I was abandoned or rejected as a child, and now I'm abandoned and rejected as an adult. But we never get to the place where we stop focusing on what we're seeing outside and start turning toward what we know to be the truth about who we are on the inside. And this is what waiting on them equates to. It equates to I'm going to work on these external factors with I'm going to tweak this and tweak that and heal this past life and deal with that particular block, or take this workshop or that class or work with this healer because it'll help me with X, Y, or Z. But we miss the part where we need to go inside and deal with the story that they are reflecting back to us in the first place. And so, to overcome the stuckness of feeling like we've done it all, again, what we have to do is start to work on our own identity. Now, before we get to number 5, as Romania said, I really want to acknowledge it. This is a lot. This is new. It's information presented in a new way, certainly on an astrology channel, to have somebody bringing biblical narrative and recentering it in a new type of conversation. This is different. It's very different to see where these two conversations overlap. So I'm going to invite those of you who are feeling confronted, just take a quick breath. And before we get to number 5, uh, I want to just acknowledge that for some of you, this is already starting to feel very freeing and very validating. For some of you, this is already starting to give you some aha moments and some insights about why certain things are going the way they do. But I also know there are others of you for whom this is feeling quite confronting. You may even feel a little bit blamed for why your connection is where it is. But at the heart of that feeling, and I know is the truth, that it's not your fault that before today, you didn't know that you were creating your connection and it was bending to your belief systems. Even if it wasn't your belief system about love, it could have been your belief system about men, could have been your belief system about marriage, could have been your belief system about yourself. It's not your fault that the collective conversation about twin flames and divine counterparts, about life, had you on autopilot, abdicating your power and authority over your life and relationships. But now that you know that you have more power than you were led to believe in 2025, for the reasons I laid out in the beginning, it is a critical choice point year, and we need to be ready to say yes to using that power in ways that build us up, that build our person up, that build our connections up, instead of tearing down what we want with doubt, with fear, and with powerless. Many of you are already living the absolute worst that can happen. Your person is tied up in third party connections. If that's you, let us know in the chat. Some of you keep having the experience of feeling like you're not being chosen, wondering why you're not good enough, processing and reprocessing childhood traumas, ex drama, your parents' pain over and over and over again, thinking that maybe somehow if you've processed it enough, at some point you'll have cleared everything there is to suffer through and maybe they'll choose you. Some of you are giving demons, witchcraft, spell work, past lives the validation that they need to keep wreaking havoc on your connection by believing their power over your life and connection is superior to your own. And then chasing the next protection spell, the next clearing, the next healing. Some of you are letting the idea that someone else's free will can trump your own free will and authority about your own life because you've never been given permission to use your authority or given a full picture and understanding of what free will even is. So you're using it as an excuse to abdicate your own authority over the way relationships, period, get to work for you in your life. And the absolute heartbreak in all of this is that you're blaming God. You're blaming the divine, which is a direct connection to the divine and God within you for a lack of understanding about how to use your own divinity, your own God given authority to have the life that you want. And it doesn't have to be this way, you guys. We don't have to live like this. So we're going to get to the fifth and final way. But before we get to there, I want to give you a chance to tap into what you already know is the truth about your power and about your connection. So we're going to take a minute. I want you all to take your hands off the keyboard. I'm going to bring you into connection with that part of you that is the source so that you have the opportunity to start to see your own reality the way it's supposed to be. So close your eyes. Take a deep breath, lean back, close your eyes. I want you to call forward the moment in your memory that you knew it was this person, the moment you knew. Find that feeling. Find that sureness in yourself. Find that clarity. Now call forward in your mind a picture of you and your person. It could be a day you remember, it could be a day you haven't had, but see you and them physically together in your mind. In your heart and in your mind, I want you to say to yourself, they're here. He's here. She's here. Say it to yourself. Now feel all the love that has brought you here to hear my voice today. All the love you've ever felt for this person. It's safe to feel it now. All the goodness, all the beauty, all the grace. Let yourself have it. Now see that love coming back to you through them. See that love filling them. See the love's purity around both of you. Stay with it. Stay with the love. And in your heart and in your mind, just repeat to yourself, this is mine to have. This is mine. If you went to the third party, if you went to someplace else, just come back. Come back to the moment you knew it was them. Come back. I want to reassure you as we come out of this visualization that no one and no thing can take that away from you. Right now, there are people all over the world living the reality that you just visualized for yourself. Whether it was a marriage or living together or traveling together or something simple like going to the grocery store together, making a meal, waking up next to each other each day. There are people all over the world who are having that reality. And if they can have it, Why not you? What you just saw is what you can absolutely have when you choose to work with your power and authority. Now, here's the cheat code. I'm about to give you the cheat code right now. There is one word that this community overuses and underdefines. So I'm going to give you a definition for it now so that you can understand how to work with it when we walk away from you today. That word is faith. The only thing between you and utilizing your power and authority to create your world is faith. Faith is a tool that transforms our third dimensional reality by bridging the gap between the supernatural and the natural within yourself, God and human, the divine and divine timing. Faith is what bridges it. And what I learned from Romania is that faith is a technology that works with the unseen world, the 5D, to move things into the 3D by giving them life force. Now, if you're anything like me, you've tried it all, but you've had no idea how to have faith. Because for me, faith was some airy fairy concept that people used to feel good in circumstances that felt horrific. Faith was something people who went to church had, and I'm putting church in air quotes because I don't know what kind of church they were going to with the way they were treating people. But, and that's how I ended up deciding church just wasn't for me. Faith was a platitude that people shared when they didn't know what else to say to someone in a bad situation. But in working with this woman I've introduced you to today, I learned the mechanics of faith and how to use this tool to turn my connection around 180 degrees. And together, the two of us have decided to create a container in which you can learn how to use faith. It's called the Union Workshop, and it's for anyone who has been activated by love. The Union Workshop is a 10-week to teach you how to create faith, work with faith, and utilize faith. And I believe my moderator, Kylie, has a link for the Union Workshop. It is there in your chat. And in this union workshop, not only will you learn how to utilize faith, but you're going to begin to start to see that when you work with faith and use faith as the tool that we will guide you with, faith is the kind of thing that will turn your connection around too. We start on February 8th. We meet for 10 Saturdays at 12 p.m. The full schedule is on the link that Kylie's placed in the chat for you. But if your connection has felt stuck, where it's you and another person both circling back and forth with third parties, you and healers and coaches and teachers and guides clearing past life after past life, and you're not getting anywhere with it, learning the technology of faith is what has been missing for you. The workshop is 144 USD for all 10 weeks. And in it, you're going to learn strategy for changing your love situation permanently. And there are some people in the workshop who are in what they consider some format of union. They would say they're in a relationship or technically married, but there are things in the third dimension that have been challenging for them. There are people who have been in long-term separation and no communication, no idea how to bring it together or get back into communication. There's a lot of fear and doubt and a lot of detaching and walking away that they need to overcome and delete in order to be able to move forward. We're going to talk you through how to rewrite the script for all relationship dynamics. This is something Romania is actually very gifted at. She does this all the time with people in her world who are showing up in ways that the treatment is just, it's either disrespectful or not clear, or I have watched her literally in her own world shift relationship dynamics, even with family members. And you know, those are some of the trickiest relationship dynamics to to shift. We're going to talk about creating your union and release this concept of leaving it all up to divine and surrendering. We're going to get you into personal partnership with your power of God within and the divine. We're going to get you into personal partnership with that power. We're also going to teach you the secret design of this dimension. There is a way the third dimension is designed to work that no one's talking about. It's written right there in very plain language in the Bible. Now, you don't have to be a Christian to attend or identify with any of that, but whether you take what's in the Bible as allegory or you take it as fact, the blueprint for the way the external world is responding to our internal world, it's written right there. It's in very simple language, and we're going to extrapolate on that so that you start to understand how to work with it. For those of you who are ready and need it, you're going to get a new relationship and understanding of the divine and God, God within and God without, because they are one and they are at work inside of you. We're also going to go deep into this understanding about how do you deal with what comes up in the nervous system when confronted with newness. Because a lot of the blocks that people are experiencing that cause them to go into this, I abdicate, I surrender, I walk away, I detach, this sort of thing, much of that is a function of a dysregulated nervous system. We're going to talk you through ways you can begin the process of releasing dysregulation so you can come into having the enormity of this love in your life. Now, if you've ever been in the circumstance of trying to figure out how to make this all work for you, you need to go ahead and join the union workshop now, especially if you've been in healing loop after healing loop after healing loop. 5D union, which is where a lot of you are, 5D union is a function of healing. And I want to be clear, healing isn't a bad thing. It's a great thing. In fact, we're going to talk about that in a minute when we get to the fifth block. Healing is a beautiful thing. We need healing. It's what restores wholeness. It restores completeness. But if what you're wanting to experience is third dimensional union, you got to come out of healing. 3D union is a function of faith. And that's what you'll learn in this 10-week container. The full schedule is here. You might have to click down here on show more in order to see all of the dates. We do allow you a refund after class 1 only. If for some reason after class 1 you've decided this just isn't right for you, you're welcome to a refund. So there's nothing to lose if you want to go ahead and you want to sign up, you want to check it out, you want to see how it works. But this is for everyone. And I want to make sure I answer a few questions about this, especially because we've brought in the Bible. I know some of you, like me, have a history of church hurt. Here's the deal. If you're willing to build a new relationship with the divine, yourself, and your story and narrative of love and faith, this is for you. If you've had a deep love interest that seems to circle but never land or is stuck, even if you consider yourself LGBTQIA+, that's fine. We're not judging you. This is for you. If you can make time to do the weekly homework assignments and daily self-work, because faith is not just I am sitting here in my mind just thinking it. Faith is actually something you are going to need to engage in a regular way. If you can make time for yourself, this is for you. Daily self-work, 15 to 30 minutes. And if your spiritual toolbox is all inclusive, all faiths are welcome. You don't have to be Christian or identify as Christian. You could be Muslim, you could be Jewish, you could be Episcopalian, Hindu, Buddhist. The tools we are going to teach you will be based on the metaphysical secrets of creatorship that are hidden in the teachings of Jesus and in the Bible. But you can be of another walk of faith and still benefit from understanding how this works for you. But let me be clear. If you or your person is under the age of 21, this is not for you. If your person has used legal measures to sever all contact, such as a restraining order, or your connection with your person could be considered by authorities legally as stalking, please don't join. If you have such a degree of past church trauma that makes it impossible for you to have any relationship with the divine at work within you or the divine at work outside of you, the word Jesus just makes you flinch. Biblical stories, you can't even take them as allegory. This probably is going to be very confronting for you. As I said, the foundational teachings in this workshop are biblically based about your divinely given authority, power, and ability, but they are brought to life by your willingness to have a positive relationship with God. And if that's not something you're in a place where you can redefine, you might want to get some counseling around church trauma. That's a real thing and a real sector of counseling. And then maybe revisit this when it's time. And if you have a hyper religious relationship with God and Jesus mediated by the church, right? If you've got strong moral challenges with what we've shared today, or the teaching of Neville Goddard, say, or Joyce Meyer, say, or the liberation theology movement, or prosperity gospel movement teachings as a whole, you're going to find what we share with you in this workshop very confronting and struggle to fully participate. But if that's not you, if like this person in your heart, you know your union is meant to be, it's time for you to sign up. And the link is below. There's a ton of FAQs here. Please read them if you have questions. We'll answer some of them when we get to the Q&A portion of our time together today. Please know that the Union Workshop remains open to all. If you've got questions, you can certainly ask about them. But before we close out, I want to go ahead and give you access to the final counterintuitive block to union. And I would say we talked about this week coming into this workshop. This one is the biggest one, and it's this construct of healing wounds. As I mentioned, healing is needed and healing is helpful, but healing is not, absolutely not, in any capacity blocking your union. Many of you have already heard, known, and repeated for yourself what you give your attention to grows. You already know that this is the way creatorship works. The truth is, the more we focus on healing, the more things we are going to find to heal. And if we have run out of things in this lifetime, trust me, a past life will show itself and reveal itself as something that requires healing. And if that's not enough because you're that powerful of a creator, a new trauma will emerge in this lifetime, forcing you to have to heal it. If you, this is part of the problem. We live in a trap around healing that never allows us to have the experience of having. And this is the biggest lie, the biggest trap that I see circulating in the divine connection twin flame community. We want to get to wholeness here by focusing on healing. But healing is not the same as the construct of having. And so if once we've gotten a wholeness, like I said, if we're focused on healing, we're going to go right back to find something else to heal, and we'll loop and re-loop in these healing loops until we have gotten to the place where we have figured out how to have the capacity to have our connection. Romania, would you like to speak on this idea of having and what that means and how that's different than healing?
Absolutely. So when Kay and I were going through these 5 blocks, initially healing wasn't the biggest. I called her out on saying divine timing was her thing. Well, healing was mine. And the reason why is because it's been in this dynamic of being with the person that is my person now that the modality of healing came up. And the thing that was so tricky for me with healing is that you heard me speak on the fact that walking away did not feel good, detaching did not feel good, blaming them for not doing their share did not feel good. Healing felt good, healing felt helpful. It felt great that I was doing shadow work and energy work, even things regulating my nervous system, all the things that's very taboo for the church, but it felt good. It resonated with me. But the thing for me is when it came to healing, that was very opposite from having, is healing kept me in this place of almost, but not quite. Almost, but not quite. You got a little bit more to do, right? All the trauma, all the drama, the childhood heals, the church hurt, the daddy issues, mommy issues, friend issues. There wasn't enough shadow work journals in the world to help me. There just wasn't there. It's almost, but not quite. That is what healing did. And in me, dealing one-on-one with me and just knowing like, okay, I really want this thing. What is the issue? What is going on here? And having, like I said, I get these massive downloads, hearing Holy Spirit say to me, you don't need to heal, you just need to have. And I was like, wait, what? You don't need to heal, you just need to have. That is all that life gives to us, is the ability to have. You don't need, I'm not saying that growing and expanding and being the best you and moving past all of that is absolutely not beneficial. But the issue is that when it keeps you in this loop of I have a little, even this workshop is not to fix you. This is why it was a beautiful thing for Kay to bring up not feeling blame, not feeling heaviness, not feeling like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this all wrong. Oh, I've never heard any of this before. That's okay, because you can immediately step into the expansion that we're presenting to you. So healing kept me in this place of almost, but not quite. Just a little bit more work, a little bit more learning about manifestation, a little bit more of the wish fulfilled, one more book, one more thing. And that is what we are presenting to you, is how you're going to do life. Because that is ultimately what union is. It is a brand new life. That is what, and for some of you, the story that you have of not having is bigger than the story of having. For some of you, in the visualization, because this came through, you didn't know if that's your person. There are some of you listening that even as you were doing that, you were like, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, because I don't know the moment that I really felt like he's my person. I don't know if I really know that she's my person. It wasn't enough. So this is the way you do life. You are stepping into a brand new life. So much of what I teach is about having a brand new life. And I didn't need to heal to have a brand new life. I just needed to decide. I just needed to decide. And whatever happens, happens. But there is a place where, if healing feels like almost, if even if you are looking at this workshop as, I hope this is the thing that will like do it for me and make, this is going to be the way that you do life. This is, no matter how you feel, like no matter, I've cried, I've journaled, I've done all the things, I didn't feel good enough, I didn't feel worthy enough. And out here, like this is really, this is the genius of having. Out here is not having. Having is internal work. That is what I want to teach you. Having is not out here what you see. That is, it's not. We do not solidify. When you look up the word have, when you define the having, is not anything to do with what it is that you see, any experience that your senses tell you. That is not having. That is not. And so for me, when I really decided I can stay in this parameter of healing, or I can stay in this parameter of having. And the beauty of having is that whatever does not belong in the reality of having will expose itself. The Bible says that we cannot serve two masters. We will hate one. We cannot serve healing and having. We cannot serve lack and having. You cannot serve this truth that we are presenting to you and stay in where you've been. When you join, you are giving up the narrative that you have held on to this person, with this person for however long. If it's been 5 months, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, if it's been 20 years. When you decide to give us the next 10 weeks of your life, you are releasing it. It is over. It is gone. I'm going to give you all one more scripture and then I'm going to let Kay talk. Isaiah 43, 18 and 19 says that we are to forget the former things. We are not to remember the things of the past. Do you not see that new thing? Now it springs forth. As soon as you decide to forget the old, the new immediately shows itself. This is a kingdom truth that has served me. Not tomorrow, not at the end of this course, but as soon as you decide, I am forgetting what was. I am forgetting what I see. I am forgetting the obvious. I am forgetting that I need to do this. I am forgetting detaching. I'm forgetting waiting. I'm forgetting this is what I see. Oh, but he's not that invested. I am forgetting all of that. And I am 100% leaning into the expansion of having. That is what this is. You cannot heal and having. It's just you deciding and we're going to grow with that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is perfectly put. I don't even know that I have anything to add to that, but that's the key. That's the way out of this last number 5 trap of blocking union, is thinking that if I just heal enough wounds, then I'll be unblocked and my union can come forth. The more we practice and be in the practice of seeking out wounds in order to create a healing for them, the more we'll be in the practice of finding wounds to heal them. Having is a completely different practice. It's a completely different skill set. It's a completely different way to focus your attention, your time, your effort, and your energy. There are practices for having that we are going to teach you in these 10 weeks so that you can begin to build your muscle and your capacity for having. We're also going to teach you some new language to expand your consciousness around having and get you out of this loop of constantly trying to heal block after block after block. So that you can step into this and you can have the union the way you have visualized it as possible for you. And it's okay. It's okay if you don't know who your person is. If you have resonated with what we have shared today and what I share on this channel as being the truth of what love is, and what we have shared today as being the truth of who and how you can live in terms of your creatorship and God within you, this is the workshop where you can expand that and you can even call in the right person for you. That can be made known to you, that can become clear to you. You can get that certainty. But if you have been letting a lack of wounds being healed, hurt, rehurt, processing, and then reprocessing hurt become a reason why you're in this place of doubt around whether or not this is your person, whether or not you can have this, signing up for the union workshop now is going to help you release that and move into a completely new timeline. Speaking of timelines, I want to share a little bit about my story. And as you guys are putting your questions in the chat, please put your questions in the chat now because we're going to take a few minutes to answer questions before we wrap up. I want to share with you a little bit about where I have been on this journey. Many of you know I don't share a lot of my story, mostly because I don't want people over identifying with what I have and don't have as some sort of metric for what they have and don't have. And because your union is going to be unique, it's going to be your process, it's going to be a function of your choices and your decisions. I also don't want my life to be a platform via which everyone else is trying to have a springboard for theirs. You've got God within you. So I share my story minimally, but I want to share the breakthroughs that have happened for me since I have connected with Romania that we're going to impart to you through these 10 weeks. When I first met my counterpart in 2015, I want to be very clear, I knew love. I'd already been in love many times. I have several signatures in my astrological chart that love is a way of life for me. In fact, my very first relationship, I was in it for 6 years, from the time I was 16 to 22. Many of you know Charlotte from Happy Twins. She did some remote viewing, historical remote viewing on that relationship, and she was able to see, oh, wow, that person was also a divine counterpart, and you activated them. I can see their divine feminine light turned on through connecting with you. She and I were together for a total of 6 years. And when she and I split, it was devastating to me, not because it was my first relationship, but because it was a deeply spiritual bond. She was the kind of person who could see spirits and entities. She was the kind of person who, when I would be in my house, neighborhoods away, 45 minutes away from where she was, and I'd be upset about something and crying, she'd pick up the phone and call me and say, Kay, what's wrong with you? I can feel you crying. What's up? I'm no stranger to divine connection. It has been a way of life for me. Fast forward um, to about 2011. My clairaudience had turned on at that time. And thankfully, as my clairaudience turned on, I was really kind of already from the beginning tapped into the realm of the angelics, the divine, the Holy Spirit. I never had to go through the experience that some people do when their clairaudience turns on and they have the experience of seeing or hearing demons and ghosts and the realm of people who have recently departed. I've never been tapped into that realm. I thank God for my shielding and protection. It's just not been what I've needed to do in order to walk what I'm here to offer on earth. So between 2011 and 2015, I'm really starting to live my best life in the world of work and career and what I'm creating in the third dimension. I'm learning how to make money as a business owner. And in 2014, the year before I met my counterpart, uh, I had, let's just say, a very dark night of the soul. And I've spoken about this, some of you know this. In the span of 1 year, I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids, a thyroid issue, found out I owed the IRS upwards of $60,000, had to move in with my parents because my business took a nosedive, lost my apartment, and ended up living with my parents for a year. During that year, both of my mother's parents died within 90 days of each other. So there was like every 60 days, some format of the worst that could happen just getting worse for a 1 year period. And after that, I met my counterpart. That was the gag. Like, after that kind of leveling of my life, in walks this man, and he is the first man. I've been in love. I've been in relationships with men, been in relationships with women, but there's something different here. And I didn't realize it because in all of the relationships I had been in since that first relationship, I was in them and I stayed in them, working and trying to make them work until the wheels fell off. I had no idea how to let a thing die, how to let a thing go. And Romania would tell you, you just had no authority, ma'am. She's probably going to say that in a minute when I get done. But what I will say is that as each one of those relationships ended, each one of those people, they broke up with me. 5 years, 6 years, 4 years, back to back to back. By the time I met my counterpart, I had made a decision for myself. I'm not going to be broken up with anymore. This time, I'm going to be the person who does the leaving. I'm going to figure out when it's time to go, and I'm going to be the person who pulls the plug. I'm not going to stay past its expiration date. Now, if you don't already hear in that is the runner's setup, let me make it plain. Over the course of our relationship, when we first got together in 2015, I broke up with this man no less than 3 times. Now, for another person who may be going through, who knows what he's been through his past, I'm not going to get into that here because that's his business. You can imagine being broken up with and got back together with 3 different times would traumatize a person, even if this isn't some sort of twin flame divine connection. And so I can be accountable for that now. I can see that now, but at the time, no clue what was going on other than in my mind, I was breaking a pattern that I had developed. I had no idea that what I was doing was actually reinforcing a pattern of not being chosen. So, fast forward to the very end of that relationship at that time. I think we broke up in like 2016, 2017, just before I started this YouTube channel and figured out what was going on. Fast forward, at the last breakup, I said to myself, I know if I stay where I am, because we had lived in the same city at that time. I know if I stay where I am, I'm just going to want to get back together with him. Clearly not paying attention to what was in my heart, utilizing my head the whole way. I got up and I moved across the country for 6 months. I said to myself, the only way I'm not going to go back and he's not going to come back to me is if I leave and I go across the country. So I did. And during that time away, I started taking some classes at a meditation center, which amplified my clairaudience. It's since opened up my clairvoyance. Um, and I began to feel this deep longing for God, this deep sense of feeling separated and I want to go home. And it wasn't a suicidal thing. That wasn't it. It was a recognition that there was some piece of divinity, greatness, love that was missing within me. I go back to the city after I finish the 6 month sublet on my apartment. I go back to the city where he and I live, thinking, okay, that's finally done, whatever. And I start getting some readings. He gets back in touch. He wants to know how I'm doing. We start chatting a little bit. And I start getting some readings from people trying to figure out, is this actually done? And one of the readings I ended up getting was from somebody who's intermittently on YouTube now. His name is Ray of Light Tarot, beautiful soul. He did a reading for me and he said to me back in, I think it was like 2017, he starts pulling cards and showing them on the Zoom camera. And he says to me, oh, this isn't done. And I think this person is probably your twin flame. And I said, what? Because I had heard about twin flames from, I circulated in spiritual communities. But anytime somebody brought it up, it just sounded like the most toxic, crazy nonsense I had ever heard of. And I wanted no parts of it. So he says this to me, and I'm like, oh God, here we go. I get off the Zoom with him and I pray. And I talk to my guidance team and I say, what is there for me to know about this? And I start to Google a couple of things on twin flames, and they say, close out of that. And they begin to talk to me about what twin flames actually are, how there is this divinity activation that happens through the experience of divine love, and how it opens people up to have the experience of the heavens on the earth through the experience of love, through the heart activation. And those became my first channelings. The things that I told them directly to you guys. Those became my first channelings. After I got back into the city where he and I both live, and we reconnected a couple of times, it wasn't going the way I wanted it to go. I decided, okay, none of this is enough. It's time for me to cut cords. And I cut cords. And as I mentioned at the top of this broadcast, after I cut those cords, I ended up feeling suicidal for, I would say, about 90 days. I had a plan. I was starting to take action on the plan. I was planning to not be on Earth. And um, we ended up reconnecting, and I did some spiritual work to reconnect the cords. Again, had no faith, no capacity to change things, to transform things, no connection with my own divinity, no understanding that there was divinity at work in this, that God was at work in this, and that I could work with that. I was still trying to create and control the connection from the third dimension. Fast forward, he and I start going through a cycle of back and forth, in and out, hot and cold. I want it, I don't. You want it, you don't. And it's tumultuous until I meet Romania. I meet Romania and we start working together, and she starts teaching me some of the things she's taught today. And when I tell you, the thing has turned around 180 degrees, and it didn't even take very long. It turned around 180 degrees after years of back and forth, hot and cold, in and out. Most of it generated from within me, right? And she would say it was 100% generated from within you. But I had the roots of not being chosen in me, and when I dealt with those roots and got those out, and I also had the root of non havingness within me. And when I dealt with that and got that out and started to live in and walk in and use the tool of faith to create my reality, that was when everything changed between he and I. There's consistency in communication, consistency in time spent, consistency in loving, respectful communication. We see each other and connect. We are an active part of one another's lives now in ways that we weren't even an active part of each other's lives when we were together. Like technically as a couple when we first met. There's so much more unfolding now than there ever was. And it's all happened in the span of the time that I've worked with her, and I have not worked with her very long. So when I saw the power of what this instrument of faith can do, specifically in relationship and connection, it's certainly impacted and changed other areas of my life. But when I saw what it can do in connection specifically, I was like, okay, this is what my people need. They can get another reading, but the truth is, and I have been speaking this to anyone who's been on my channel for more than a year, you know I've been telling you this. The truth is, the stars, they're like weather, they're energy, right? They are, they might blow the wind, they might move the tides, but at the end of the day, it's the sailor who sets the sails and picks the destination. And if that's you and you're ready to step into this, this is your invitation to step into the union workshop with us so that we can show you how to transcend time, as she calls it. I call it transcending the astrology. because this man and I, we missed several major personal union windows. Like the stars came and went, and we were wilding out. I'm on the other side of that now, telling you you can transcend your astrology. You can transcend time. And if that's what you want to learn how to do, joining the union workshop will teach you how to do that in 10 weeks. Okay, that's my story. We're going to answer some questions now. The link to enroll is below this video in the description box if you're listening to the recording, and the chat if you're here with us live. We're going to answer some questions, probably the next 3 or 4 questions, because we did not intend to be here this long. And then we're going to close out. Thank you all for being here. Let's just see. Let me jump into the chat and just see what we have. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Becca asks, my question, do we need to know where that core wound is or where the I can't have started in order for us to change permanently? Manny, I'm going to let you take that one.
I don't think so. I think you just need to understand what it is that you want. I think that's a part of falling into the healing trap, is figuring out. Figuring out takes, because it wasn't intentional. Whatever got us to where we are now was not intentional. We were not conscious of it. We did not do it deliberately. Something I want to share, because I thought about it when Kay talked about when she found her person, she knew love. And I heard that and thought, and I've said this about myself without going into like detail about me, I didn't know love. I didn't know love in any way. I didn't know love from family. I didn't know love from friends. I knew stimulation. I knew he's cute. I knew good sex. I knew neediness and want, but I did not know love. I did not know love. And so when and the thing that challenged me and where this shifted for me with my person is in the middle of at the beginning of 2023, I was leading a very successful marriage group. Like I was leading women into union, into getting married. Like we've crossed over, and I was engaged. And I remember we were just having this conversation, and I love hard and I love loud. And he said to me, I didn't feel enough lovey-doveyness from him. Like I needed more of the lovey-doveyness. And he said, and this is really funny because when it comes to astrology, he is a Cancer, right? And so that was supposed to be my top person. And so he said, I'm the strong silent type. I don't love hard. And in the grand scheme of how great he was, that challenged me. Like that little thing challenged me. And I remember I had this open vision. And when I was little, I used to go fishing with my grandmother. And when we would start to pull the fish out of the creek, when it was little, my grandmother would say, "That's not even worth it. Like put it back." And I heard that in my heart. I remember being very prayerful about it. And I remember hearing for myself, like, I don't want it. I want to put it back. And I heard like Holy Spirit echo to me, then throw it back, like throw it back. And I remember having this conversation with him and being like, "Hey, it's like the healing, almost, but not quite. Like you're not everything." And during this time, I had been dreaming vividly about a public personality. And I just thought I was just dreaming about him. I don't know. And I was like, I don't know why I'm dreaming about this public figure person. Like I don't really know like who he is. I don't even know how I saw him for the first time. And I could not shake the dreams. And after I ended my engagement, and I felt like a failure. I did not want to tell the women that I had been ministering to that, oh, here I am again. Nah, I don't know. And it was during this time where we had like this age gap. And I remember bringing it up to, I came across this YouTube and it said age gap and it was like twin flame and all these other dynamics. And you're dreaming about the person and it's all of a sudden. And I messaged Kay and I was like, girl, I think I got a twin flame and I don't even know what that is. And she was somewhere and she was like, wait, what? And it was this whole thing. And because I know who I am, and one of the things, there was something very specific that God told me to pray about concerning him. And I only knew him because I would like stalk his Instagram. And again, I'm like, I'm crazy. And I told all my church friends, and they were like, oh, you ended your engagement. Like, oh my gosh, you've lost it. Like, no, it's witchcraft. The new age group got you. Like, what are you doing? You're going crazy. And I was like rebuking it. And I had my holy oil and I was doing all the things. And the dreams got more and more intense. And so there was this one thing that God told me to pray about for him. And I had no idea who he was. Like I'm like, how did I see him? And so I was praying about this one thing. And he was international somewhere. And I had went on his Instagram, and I remember he wrote the exact words that I was praying. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, wait, what? And it changed everything. It changed everything. It is almost like before we had the 3D, we did have the 5D. And I thought, okay, I don't know what this is. And I don't know how to do this. And I didn't know love. I didn't know wholeness. I didn't know, I didn't know having somebody echo. There were things that I love that he loves. There were things that I want that he wants. There were things that I was praying about for me that he would talk about for himself. And I did not know that thing. I did not know that thing. And during that time, the roles were reversed and Kay was my person. And I was like, okay, so is this, but I did not, like she said, right? I don't want no runner chaser 20 years down the line. Like, no, I'm not even built that way. No, it's a no for me. So when I saw the dynamics, like when people said, oh, like when you're a twin flame, it's never about union. I was like, yeah, scratch that. Okay. You know how I said I had it? Yep. No, it's a no. He's not, I can't have union. You mean to tell me I love somebody that I don't even know, that I don't know how this thing is working, but like there's no union? I was like, what in the world kind of like it's a no. So when I started to do the work of having, and this is me being so long-winded about this question, things came up. Like all of the rejection, all of the hurt, all of the unworthiness, all of the things. I remember like saying, oh, I don't like this thing about me. And somebody like, because I wear glasses, right? And I was like, oh, like, I don't know. Like, and I remember he said randomly, I love girls who wear glasses. And I was like, what in the world is happening to me? Like, what? Like, literally, even the age gap. I was like, oh, he's so young. And then I remember him saying, oh, I love older women. And I was like, okay, I'm losing it. Like, I was like literally, I was sending Kay voice notes like it was it was like an hour long. I was like, just help me here because I'm losing it. But all the things that was happening in that dynamic, I don't look at them like healing. I look at them like growing me into having. So finding that dynamic was very exciting to me. And it is exciting to me. And I didn't feel like it was sinful and wrong. And I have to pick a side and I'm getting ready to burn in hell because I love Jesus and I said twin flame, or I say I'm a tar. Like, no, I'm not subscribed to that. But the Bible says where grace abounds, or where sin abounds, grace much more abounds. And also, I came to understand love. And this is why I didn't know love. This is why I said, even with having a man that I have children with, even with having men that I was going to, I did not know love. When I looked at what the Bible says about love, and I'm going to read it to you all, and then we're going to go to another question. But the Bible says love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrong, which negates the whole thing with I'm doing all the work and he is not. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. Love never fails. If you know you love this person, then absolutely union is for you because love never fails.
Ooh, sis, you just gave me the truth chills because I say it all the time to people in my lunar updates. Love did not bring you this far to leave you. So if you know you're stuck, you're ready for that breakthrough, join us in the union workshop and we'll get you past where this looping is getting you stuck. Thank you for sharing that, sis. I really appreciate it. The thing that she didn't say, all those things that have happened with her person, I'm going to brag on you for just a second, if that's all right.
Okay.
Um,
Don't say too much about them.
no, 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 no. I'm not going to talk about him. I'm going to brag on you.
Okay.
Okay. The thing that Romania has not said is that some of you have, that celebrity connection or this person that's at a distance in some capacity. Some of y'all work together and you have all these sort of like worldly hurdles. In a matter of, well, I want to say it's like 6 months. I don't think it was longer than that. You went from dreaming about this man to being in the third dimension with this man through the work of having.
Right.
Like it wasn't very long. You had to move, you had to like place yourself in proximity,
Yes.
and you did that. But beyond that, that third dimensional, like packing boxes, packing up your girls, moving to a new city where you were guided to be, where they wanted to be in the first place, which was really just kind of like you saying yes to having. Aside from that, that was the doing part. 100% of everything else that you did in terms of, you know, getting into communication with him, the two of you now having great rapport and a great connection, his number in your phone, your number in his phone, all of that, 100% of it was a function of the very things you were teaching in terms of here is how you have. Here's
Yeah.
step one, here's step two, here's step three. This is what you do, this is how you do it. And you had girlfriends tell you the opposite. You had friends who would say things to you like, you have to, oh, now that you guys know each other, you have to get in his DMs. You have to
Yeah.
show up. You have to do this, you have to do that. And you said, no,
Yeah.
the way I want it to work is this. I need to see some initiative from him. I want to have that experience. What I want to experience is feeling loved for the body I have. I want to feel not self conscious and wearing glasses. I want to feel like I get to have like that, even though we have this age gap, it's a non issue. Every single one of those things that she told you guys about that, he would share, like, oh, I do like girls with glasses, or oh, I'm really into older women, these sort of things. She didn't have to say jack to him. Not a word. All of it changed because she knew how to live in the having and not the healing. So
Absolutely.
So, if you know that's where you need to go and how you need to grow, you know where to find us. We're going to wrap it up here. I don't see any other questions in the chat. It's been an absolute ball to be with you guys today. Please hit the like button on the way out so the content can circulate because you know and I know there are people who need to hear this. And the algorithm needs those likes in order to be able to share it with them. I look forward to working with you in the 10 weeks of the union workshop. All of the details are in the link that is in the description box below. Thank you so much for being here. Take great care and bye for now.